So, we happen to have, it's quite a unique Friday. It's Passover, it's a full moon, it's Thai New Year, Tamil New Year,
Good Friday.
For Good Friday, for Easter weekend. Holy shit, is this like a lot of social
Super Friday.
And
stars?
don't forget Cheryl's
There's
birthday.
there's good
Yes.
reason for this, Tyler.
Okay.
It all starts with Nowruz. Nowruz is the the determination of the solstice, right? And then
Yeah.
that's the beginning, if you like, of the summer season.
Yes.
And almost all calendric systems are trying to aim for that particular date, which is 22nd, 23rd of March in our current calendar.
Yeah.
But back in the day, they tried to aim for that. And so Stonehenge, for instance, 2500 BC, was built to determine exactly when that start date is.
Ah,
And so various monuments around the world, and they're all aiming for exactly that. And of course, the calendric systems, because it's largely based on a lunar calendar system rather than a solar one,
right.
kind of missed that date. And getting it back in alignment means that they have to put in a month or 11 days or whatever the case might be. But they always miss that date. That's why Nowruz is quite unique. For 4,000 years, they've been celebrating that day on exactly the solstice. And everybody else is kind of playing catch up,
Well,
with that.
like you,
So, and including, and I'm Tamil, and I'm really proud of the fact that the Tamils as well have their New Year around about this time as well. But I sincerely wish that it was actually the same as the solstice.
right, because Thai, every Thai holiday is on a full moon, basically. And so you're right; they're on definitely a lunar calendar system, and the Persians were clearly on a solar. And by the way, the Scandinavians are kind of on a solar. They very much celebrate the solstices and as their main annual event. Yeah, it's an interesting point. So, what else do we got here? We've got Ukraine to go over a little bit. If was there any? Well, now since we met last time, it is confirmed that the Russian battleship has sunk. That's kind of a update.
Yeah.
Yes,
So Russia.
and
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please.
it was like Russian officials were kind of turning this narrative that it was some internal kind of fire and ammunition related damage that sunk the ship, and Ukrainian were claiming that they kind of attacked it. And if no, Russians were uh, pointing towards their own personal failure, then all of a sudden, why they are now claiming that this is a call for war and now they're going to attack Ukraine, making this their official narrative to initiate the war.
Yeah, there was an announcement that if Ukraine continues to attack Russia, that the Russia is going to declare war,
Oh
which
my
is
God.
because they're having a hard time explaining to Russians why their flagship, naval vessel in the Black Sea is now on the bottom of the Black Sea. That's kind of hard to explain to Russians when Russians not in a war, because they're telling Russians we're there on a mission to denazify Ukraine. We're there to help the Ukrainians. We're there to reunify with Ukraine. Well, then why is our fucking battleship at the bottom of the fucking Black Sea? Explain that one. Well, that's very hard to explain when you're lying to your people about what's really going on. You would now have to say, yeah, actually, they don't want us there. Actually, we're not there helping them do anything. Their entire narrative is exposed as a complete and utter sham when their navy's on the bottom of the fucking ocean.
It's all about plausible deniability. And the first time that they started this whole thing is to say the reason that it sunk is because there was a number of fires on board and there was an ammunition explosion, and that
Right.
is why they were dragging it back to port. But then, it couldn't manage it, and therefore it sunk. And then, of course, the Ukrainians claimed actually it was a strike, and we sent in our drones to bring it down. And then so it carries on that way. But the official Russian version is that it was an accident, and that's why it sunk. But it's a very symbolic victory. I mean, imagine a ship that is called Moscow sinks in the Black Sea. From a symbolic point of view, this is pretty extraordinary, and it is big headline news, in a sense, and it's the one good thing that for many weeks that we can just say, oh my God, at least there's somebody listening somewhere, and something's happening. So yeah, I was really pleased that it went down.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I just think it shows that you don't have to necessarily do this big offensive thing. That if you're strategic in what you attack, you can have more impact. Because we forget a couple weeks ago there was that attack of a oil depot in Russia, supposedly by the Ukrainians. There at night. So it tells you that if you're strategic and you may be a smaller player, you can have as more impact than necessarily just annihilating everything. So very interesting strategy by the Ukrainians.
Was that depot attack a fake news? I thought later on it was said that it was a fake news, right?
Yeah, because it's the first attack on Russia's territory from Ukraine. Yeah, the deposit.
See,
Yep.
it's not confirmed whether Ukrainian are the reason that the ship sank. There are a couple of narratives going on, but nonetheless, Russian are filled with contradiction. On one
Down,
hand, they are
Einstein.
saying,
I think someone was talking to their dog.
Yes, Helen, go ahead.
Not
The, the,
Erica,
the thing
sorry,
that
that's my puppy.
the thing for me is that the other narrative, that we had a fire on board this sophisticated ship with all these systems and segmented parts and all the rest of it, that was bad, that was really bad and bad enough to cripple the ship, is embarrassing enough. And then to lose it in a supposed storm that I believe was 30 km/h winds, which is not a particularly big storm, is more embarrassing than we failed to intercept a missile. But hey,
it's because, but it's
and
been. It
and
makes
then
sense
if
when
it,
it makes
sorry,
sense that they have to say, no, we didn't. The Ukrainians aren't firing at us. It was, we had a fire on board. That seems ridiculous until you realize that they can't tell people back home that these Ukrainians are fighting viciously against us. They don't want us there because the mission, the narrative is we're going there. They want us there. We're bringing them back into the fold, and everything's great. And it's gonna, we're there to get out a few fringe freak, super small minority of Nazis that are there. Well, that doesn't make sense when your warships are being fired at. So you can't even concede the fact that Ukraine hates your dumbass and is, willing to sacrifice. Everyone there is willing to sacrifice everything to make sure you don't make any progress there. That you can't acknowledge that you're even being fired at. Makes it very tricky. And now that the ship's on the bottom of the ocean, now they're really in a pickle. How the fuck do you explain that? That your ship's at, but why is your ship at the bottom of an ocean
Okay,
when you're
my
there
point
when
is,
the ship is there to liberate people?
initially they're like, oh, it's because of the fire, our own internal failure, right? Okay, then why are you now using the same ship as an excuse to invade Ukraine, quote unquote? Now war is initiated because the ship is sunk. So that means, did Ukrainians sink your ship? If they did, then that means you were lying before that it was an internal fire. And if you were lying before, then like they can't get their stories straight. First, it's internal fire, but now they are going to invade Ukraine because Ukraine attacked their ship. So
Everyone,
just
it can reconcile. They bought a Ukrainian fire suppression system and it didn't work properly, so they're waging war on them. I mean, you can always make a story.
and then why are they moving their rest of the flagship like fleet away from the shore? Because they are afraid of getting
Killer
attacked again.
crabs, killer crabs.
Very suspect because has been
The
shown.
point is, you can. Oh, Tyler, I think. Well, you're really muted, buddy.
Okay, sorry. Funeral.
That was better.
Okay, let's go. Is there any other Ukraine-related stories?
Sources. I spend a lot of time in the Ukraine room. I mod over there a bit. So, firstly, we've had a chat about 12 hours ago, for about 12 hours, leading up to about 12 hours ago, a Russian chap there. Really interesting to hear from. And one of the most salient things that came from that is he said that all of the youngish people he knows have access to VPNs and can see all the Western news. But he feels powerless to do anything about it. He also said that he believes the reason Putin won't isn't hiring too many new military too fast is certainly, he said on record that if they give him a gun, he'd use it against the state, which was quite interesting. And then separately, we had a statistic come in that 80% of adult Russians have access to the internet out there. Sorry, to the Western internet out there via VPNs, and it's only really the older generation who are sitting watching state TV 20 hours a day with 4 hours of weather. So they were the 2 points were I think they have more access as a population to the internet than we think, and I think they feel less empowered to do anything about it than I realised. I asked him directly, do you think that if enough Russians decided to rebel against the state, they can make a difference? And his feeling was no. So they were my bits of feedback.
So I have an article here that Russians are threatening to destroy a Polish cemetery in, I guess, is it in Ukraine or in Russia? In a city called Katyn, Katyn. If Poland keeps helping Ukraine, the Russians are going to destroy this Polish cemetery. Holy shit, that is some gangster shit right there.
Yes, Tyler, there's another problem because Finland and Sweden are now trying to join NATO. And way to go, Putin, because that was not the goal, but that's what he's achieving by pushing them, threatening them for nuclear warfare. And recently, this morning, there was another threat of nuclear warfare against Finland and Sweden if they dare to join NATO, which they are now trying to join NATO because they are being threatened by Putin. So his strategies are being epically getting failed one after another because Finland now is more moving and gaining kind of this consensus towards joining NATO, which initially Putin didn't want, but he inadvertently ended up doing what he didn't want.
So the Katyn is a city in Russia, which was home of the Katyn massacre, a series of mass executions of nearly 22,000 Polish military officers and intelligentsia prisoners of war carried out by the Soviet Union, specifically the NKVD, the Soviet secret police in April and May of 1940. And so there's the mass graves there of thousands of Polish there. And so Russia is threatening to blow up this cemetery in Russia, of this Polish cemetery in Russia, if Poland keeps supporting Ukraine. That's interesting threat, for lack of a better word. If true, if that headline's true. Okay. Any other? I don't think there's any other bigger news than the confirmation that the ship has sunk.
Strikes in Kiev. There's 1 or 2 strikes in or around Kiev overnight. So, yeah,
Okay.
but we know about that.
Okay.
That was a side note. These days we're so worried about nuclear war, but then we kind of wonder, is it even realistic in the sense that, I feel like it's almost like seppuku, where if you do that, you're going to get blowback on yourself, and everyone is as well. So
Yeah, there's also a
Yeah.
lot of different yields of weapons. So, there's everything from small tactical up to large strategic. And some of them are just big bombs. Well, they're all just big bombs, but and where they go off and what the wind's doing and so forth can be the difference between a small bomb in the right place, if you like, with the wind in the right direction, can be not too bad versus a huge bomb in the wrong place at the in the wrong time could be very catastrophic. That's before the escalation consideration, but just like a bomb going off somewhere, they go off for testing purposes all the time. So it's not like a bomb going off ends the world mechanically, it's the escalation, potential for escalation.
Yeah, I
So,
think about environmental contamination.
the CNN just reported in the past 24 hours that Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, he's sort of the main guy, told European allies that the United States believes the Russian war in Ukraine could last through the end of the year. So you've got April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. You got a good 8.5 months, exactly 8.5 months left of, and there hasn't even been 2 months so far. So why is the U.S. making that statement? Many of the officials who spoke with CNN stressed that it's hard to predict exactly how long the war could go on, but several officials said that there are no indications that Russian President Vladimir Putin's ultimate goals have changed, and it's unlikely he will pursue diplomatic negotiations, blah, blah, blah. The longer the war goes on, the more brutal the humanitarian toll on the people of Ukraine, and while officials stress there is likely to be continued international resolve to provide high levels of support to Ukraine, they acknowledge that there may be very real practical changes regarding weaponry that will need to be dealt with as the war rages on. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that the fighting in Ukraine is likely to be protracted and will go on for months or even longer. Okay. Told you so before it even started. So, the next one is what? We go into the big tech headlines, or is there another big non-tech headline to go into?
I
Oh,
don't know if
yes.
Elon Musk Twitter thing is non-tech, but
It's tech.
as of today, Vanguard increased their holding, and Elon Musk is no longer the largest shareholder of Twitter. Vanguard went up a few points beyond
Okay.
Elon Musk.
That's related to the top tech story of the day. So let me do the air horn in honor
Yes.
of procedures here. Okay, so Bloomberg says they have sources that Twitter's board is considering a poison pill after Elon Musk's bid. A source says another plan under consideration is saying that the offer is too low. And that was Goldman Sachs, who's handling the deal from Twitter's side, who says that we don't accept the deal, basically, that they're not going to accept it. Twitter's board is considering adopting a measure that could protect the company from hostile acquisition bids, according to people with knowledge of the matter. One of the options under consideration is adopting a poison pill known as a shareholder rights plan, said the people who asked not to be identified, discussing private deliberations. Twitter could announce the poison pill as soon as tomorrow. Another scenario under consideration is saying that the offer is too low, according to one person. The Tesla chief executive officer, Elon Musk, Thursday offered 52. We know all that. Okay. A poison pill defense strategy allows existing shareholders the right to purchase additional shares at a discount, effectively diluting the ownership interest of the hostile party. Poison pills are common among companies under fire from activist investors or in hostile takeover situations. Included in Musk's security filing disclosing the bid was a script of text he sent to the company. In it, he said, "It's a high price and your shareholders will love it." At least one prominent investor, though, said the offer was too low, and the market reaction appeared to agree. Saudi Arabia's Prince Al-Walid bin Talal said the deal doesn't come close to the intrinsic value of the popular social media platform. Speaking at the TED conference yesterday, Musk said he wasn't sure he will actually be able to acquire it. He added that his intent was to also retain as many shareholders as is allowed by the law. And that's the end of the article. Okay.
But yesterday at the conference, Elon said that he doesn't like to lose. And when asked that what is the plan B in case he fails this acquisition, he responded that there is plan B, or there's no plan B because he likes to win, something like that.
Okay, there's a related article that says sources say Twitter's board of directors views Elon Musk's takeover offer as unwelcome, suggesting the company will fight the bid. Well, that's understandable because he's basically, as part of this bid, um, shit talking them in a way. His kind of point of wanting to take it over is that this board of directors is a bunch of bozos. So naturally, they're not going to be on board to be like, okay, yeah, we love this. Let's go ahead and sell the company to him. He thinks we're bozos. Great. Yeah. So on the face of it, the next is from Bloomberg that Musk's offer may not be viable, but it has put Twitter in a position where it is now open to acquisition. Should it fend off Musk, it will watch its stock drop, is what it says. And the
Because
next,
Musk can always sell back his shares, tanking the
right,
stock.
that's what I said yesterday, right? In fact, so if he sells his shares, he might go further and short the company, and that would potentially drive it down a bit because he's got a lot of money that he could short the shit out of Twitter, scare a lot of people out of it anyway. Vanguard, as you said, Wall Street Journal is reporting that Vanguard Group disclosed on April 8th that it increased its Twitter stake to 10.3%, making it Twitter's largest shareholder ahead of Elon Musk. And then The Verge is reporting that Musk says he will not actually be able to buy Twitter. He's motivated by its public interest value. It should open source its algorithm. And New York Post says they have a source that private equity firm has a team working on potential Twitter bid. The firm owns McAfee and Landesk and is acquiring SailPoint and Anaplan. Kind of back to the previous article that even if they survive this Musk episode, there might be subsequent episodes to deal with. Someone else have any kind of Twitter commentary?
I have a different thought, actually. That's a little opposite of what you were thinking yesterday, that he could leverage it against China. Because in the beginning, I noticed something interesting where he was starting to pull things on Twitter. And with Web3 and everything, I was actually contemplating, I'm like, I wonder if he got a hold, if he tried to decentralize portions of it to kind of keep up with the future.
Tyler, you're muted.
I don't think you can decentralize it at the moment. I don't think the technology exists, but you can distribute it as it already is. I don't think you can decentralize it.
Well, maybe pivot portions of it, right? At least make users feel like they have a say. Because, like, scrolling through his feed, he'd have, oh, do you want an edit button? Yes or no. Do you believe in free speech? Yes or no. So interesting, I find.
Yeah, but to me is that if you are really doing that, it doesn't even sound like freedom of speech, because in a sense, a lot of people who sometimes cancel others can edit and make up a story that's not even yours. Like if I originate a content and I tweet and someone else can retweet it, but then with edit. So it could be even the opposite of what free speech is all about, because I think very outspoken group of people can actually drown out others. So I'm not sure if what he's suggesting is gonna achieve what he has been saying to me.
Okay. The number two, any other Twitter thoughts? Are we going to the second story for today?
He just mentioned that yesterday, because we hosted this live TEDx talk for Elon, and I was in Austin for the whole TeslaCon thing. I heard his speech over there as well. He does have this vision of free speech, communication related, education related the social media with freedom. And he said that the edit button will be there before posting, not after. And he's open for ideas. He's actively looking for, people who are thinking like him, who wants to decentralize and open this form of communication. So he has a vision. Let's see which tool or which social media app he's going to use for that.
Okay.
Because he even put a vote that do you want to open source Twitter's algorithm? So that's another one too.
Yeah, I was wondering, which like in your deep dive yesterday, did you talk about the aspects of how different this hostile takeover was? Because that's how I perceived it as soon as it was happening. Like this is the new vogue for hostile takeovers, as no one was expecting this, and then suddenly he was. Because someone told me it was a joke, and I was like, this is an expensive joke, right? Because if someone can buy that many shares that quickly, that means that they're up to something and it's bigger than just someone trying to be silly for the internet. So yeah, I was wondering like how everyone thought about the perspective of hostile takeovers and how they actually acted out today.
Okay. The next big story is from Mark Gurman at Bloomberg. Developer logs and sources. Apple is testing 4 different M2 based chips in at least 9 new Macs, including MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, Mac Mini, and Mac Pro. Apple has started widespread internal testing of several new Mac models with next generation M2 chips, according to developer logs. Here we go. M2s. Cannot wait to see the event and the data and the stats. The benchmarks, as they say, for M2. Now we're going to have almost like the iPhone, a new chip. Is it every year? They're going to do an upgrade on these, or every other year? Is the
I'm genuinely excited that they might take over PCs in terms of raw power. It's looking possible. It'd be really interesting to see. Obviously, they haven't yet, despite their claims, anywhere near. But it could happen, and it'd be amazing. I mean, they already have, from an environmental point of view, the power. If you look for want the same power in a PC and a Mac, and you say my power budget's 200 watts or whatever, then Apple are wiping the floor already. If you don't care about power usage, then PCs will wipe the floor. But it'd be really interesting to see M2, M3, and where this goes. So yeah.
yeah? Okay,
Something
next.
else that's interesting is when I before I retired from IBM, they had a partnership with Apple, and they actually replaced all of our ThinkPads, which were at that point owned by Lenovo, sold to Lenovo probably 10 years earlier, and they're all Apple, so they're all using MacBooks and iPads. So yeah, even IBM caved to Apple.
Great. Next up, the U.S. Treasury says that North Korea-backed hacking group called Lazarus is tied to the theft of cryptocurrencies worth about $600 million from the Axie Infinity-linked Ronin Bridge, which we read those headlines about 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So Ronin was hacked for more than $600 million in crypto late last month. And the U.S. Treasury says it was North Korean-backed hacking group, Lazarus. So something tells me that hacking groups in North Korea are, I don't know, but my hunch tells me that those people don't get to keep that money, that money actually goes to dear leader, and that they work for the state. But anyone else have any sense of if a North Korean hacker manages to get some crypto, what do we imagine happens to that crypto?
I think I agree with you, Tyler. It can't happen without the approval of their government, the way they run the things over there. And these hackers are not only backed, I'm just speculating here, just, and they are sharing this with their government.
Okay, next up. The Financial Times says they have sources that TikTok is under investigation by the United States government agencies for CSAM, that's child abuse images and whatnot, and how a specific privacy feature is being exploited by predators. Let's open this one.
Finally, I'm happy.
Short video app with young user base accused of being a perfect place for predators by Homeland Security. Oh, wait, hang on. I thought it was Facebook that was harming the kids now. What's going on? I was told very clearly that Facebook is the one that's ruining our children. So I'm confused. This isn't
I
about
think
Facebook, right?
everyone's learning is that children on the internet might not be the most best thing for a kid's mind, growing mind. So maybe there'll be an age limit for people who can go on the internet.
Dealing with sexual predators has been an enduring challenge for social media platforms, but for all of them. But TikTok's young user base has made it vulnerable to being a target. The United States Department of Homeland Security is investigating how TikTok handles child abuse material, according to two sources familiar with the case. The Department of Justice is also reviewing how a specific privacy feature on TikTok is being exploited by predators, said one person with knowledge of the case. The DOJ has a long-standing policy of not confirming or denying existence of ongoing investigations. Quote, it's a perfect place for predators to meet, groom, and engage children. Oh, lovely. Who wouldn't want a perfect place for predators to meet, groom, and engage children? It's the
I
platform.
think it took them to listen to tech news to finally decide, hey, it's more than Facebook.
This says Aaron, according to the chief of the Child Exploitation Investigation Unit at the Homeland Security's Cybercrime Division, calling it the platform of choice for this behavior or for these predators. Well, you know why it's the platform of choice? Because the kids aren't on Facebook. We've been trying to make this clear from the beginning. They're on TikTok. You don't see pedophiles hanging out in modern art galleries or country clubs. They're at the shopping malls, right? Not that I would know anything about that. I'm just assuming here. But they're sure as hell not hanging out on Facebook either. They're going to hang out on TikTok. This is the most obvious thing in the world. Now, that's one point. The other point is, to what degree are these different platforms protecting these young people? Something tells me if Facebook was guilty of this, we would have heard about this on the front page of the Wall Street Times in 80-point font. So let me do this. Where can we Google TikTok investigation Homeland Security? Homeland Security TikTok investigation. If I Google those words, Homeland Security TikTok investigation, what do I get? 39 minutes ago from Ars Technica, 9 to 5, 9. The huge. Now keep in mind, every time that Facebook had a wrongdoing, it was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the likes. Now, who's running this story that we're reading right now is an interesting question. I want to know, does the Wall Street Journal have the balls to run this story? Because searching for it as I just did, I see it's being covered by 9 to 5 Mac, not exactly a tier 1 publication. Ars Technica, not at all a tier 1 publication. New York Times, there you go. Oh, no, but that's August 7th. That's a totally different. TikTok said to be under national security review. Okay, separate issue from last year. Who else is here? Who else is covering this right now? That's it. 2. Ars Technica and 9 to 5 Mac. Those really big publications that, everyone reads. All your friends and your parents and relatives are all reading Ars Technica and 9 to 5 Mac. Well, they're covering it. Notably absent in the coverage of this is Washington Post New York Times and the likes, who were too busy trying to paint Facebook as the place that's hurting your kids. And again, it's because that's who. By the way, do you remember when the Facebook files happened, whenever that was, 4 or 5 months ago, right? And Facebook was the big ad network that had stolen all of the revenue from the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the tier one publications. And at that time, TikTok was not being addressed at all, even though we knew that TikTok was clearly a bigger problem with regards to kids and their safety and their health and everything else. And they were somehow getting a pass. And it was ostensibly, potentially, my conspiracy theory is they get a pass because they're economically not a threat to these big tier one publications. Until now, TikTok, we read headlines in the past week that TikTok ad revenue is about to skyrocket. That now puts them in the crosshairs of big legacy media. So we might start to see articles like this one that we're now reading. So we'll see.
Didn't Facebook run a smear campaign against TikTok
Yes.
not too long
Well,
ago?
if Facebook knows that TikTok is doing much more egregious stuff with kids than they are themselves, they have it's in Facebook's own interest to notify policymakers, lawmakers, about that. And the question is, how exactly should they do that? So the article that we read was they hired a firm in and around Washington D.C. What's the? Was it Arlington, Virginia? What's the town there, just outside of K Street, where you have these outfits that do all this internal PR on Capitol Hill for you? Yeah, they hired one of those agencies, and that agency was trying to drum up the narrative, draw out the evidence and the stories and the anecdotes, and turn it into a war of media of attention. And yeah, they did do that. I think they did that because they really want to drive home the narrative that TikTok actually is what you need to be worried about if you're actually worried about your kids' safety on social networks. And this is quite a damning article that the Department of Homeland Security is not only investigating, they're quoted in the fucking article saying that this is the platform of choice for predators. And this is, that's more than just an investigation. These are actual admissions. These are statements by people at the Department of Homeland Security who are leading the investigation, are speaking to Financial Times about it. Okay. I didn't see similar things with Facebook. I saw they're two different companies, Company A, Company B. Company A, we saw headlines about internal documents that were only meant to ever be seen by employees, where one of the slides out of the tens of millions of slides was drawing attention to, we're not doing all that we can to help every young user. That's Company A. Company B is a government agency saying out loud publicly, this platform is the platform of choice for predators because there's a huge vulnerability that makes children very vulnerable to sexual predation. Which of those two things is worse? Company A having an internal slide that was only meant for internal viewing about how they don't feel like they're doing everything that they can, or B, a U.S. government agency saying this platform is the preferred platform for child predators. Which platform are you going to let your kids on? Right. Well, why is the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times making such a big stink about Company A and not even covering the story about Company B? One is much worse than the other. Far, far, far worse. There was never in Company a government agency saying Company A is doing all of this bad stuff. The revelations for Company A were internal documents. Company B is something quite different. Company B is third parties who have an expertise saying this is the matter of the fact. This is the problem. It's A, B, C, X, Y, Z. Anyway, you get my point. So that's an interesting development that they're under investigation and the Department of Homeland Security. But unfortunately, so far it's just 9 to 5 Mac and Ars Technica. Oh, and we can add. I take it all back, everybody. There's
Financial
another.
Times, I see
There's
it's all.
another. There's another huge publication covering it now called NeoWin. So never. I take it all back, everybody. NeoWin is now joined to make sure everybody gets wind of this story. You know NeoWin. I don't even know their fucking URL. What is neowin.net? Neowin.net's on the case, folks. I'm sure everyone's going to be hearing about this now. So you got Ars Technica, 9 to 5 Mac, and the winner of the Your Child Has Its Own blog now, neowin.net, is now covering the story. It's this snowball has got some serious traction. It's clearly getting a lot of picked up momentum. How is it that this is not being picked up by big media? That Homeland Security is investigating TikTok in this way, and with those quotes from that person from Homeland Security. Given the number of children who are using TikTok, how is this not mainstream? How is this not getting at least the same level of news as the Facebook files that was just being endlessly covered by the consortium of the anti-Facebook squad? You really care about children, right? That's why you were covering the Facebook files, right? It's because you were so concerned about the kids, right? That's why we really needed to make sure everyone saw all these internal Facebook documents, because we were so worried about the kids. Right. That's why you're not covering the story when Department of Homeland Security Cyber Patrol is actually saying, actually, the real problem, the predators are all over on TikTok. But you're not covering that story because you don't give a fuck about the kids. You don't give a fuck about these kids being preyed on. Not one bit at all. You don't give a shit about child trafficking or any of the negative shit that's happening to kids on these platforms. You give zero fucks. And that's why you're not covering it. So stop pretending like you give a fuck about the kids. You do not. Or you would cover this story. So, Rapido, whose bike taxi service is available in about 100 Indian cities, raises $180 million. Reuters says China bans live streaming for unauthorized video games. And I think you might know why if you've been following tech news for more than a few weeks. Particularly of overseas games or competitions that have not been approved. Does anyone want to take a guess why? I'll give you the answer in about 30 seconds.
Uncle G can't censor that shit quick enough.
Exactly right, man. So, China is very clever. They don't let live streamers live stream that they don't have control over. If they don't know where your dog sleeps at night, they're not going to let you live stream. If they don't know where your grandma's sleeping, they're not going to let you live stream because they can't risk you saying shit that they don't want said on their internets, on their interwebs. So these live streaming overseas game competitions where anyone can say anything, we cannot have that. That's called freedom of speech. We ain't going to let that can't work in our little controlled kingdom that we've got going on over here. We cannot risk people being able to say what's on their minds because that could jeopardize our entire house empire of cards that we've built over here. You see the problem. So they can't allow live streaming of video game competitions from overseas games or whatnot because they can't control the people. They can't come visit you and kill your pets while you sleep, threaten you with happy to provide the horror stories of live streamers and the weird. We never get into that, and that rarely gets covered. But yeah, people do get dealt with if they do try to do anything on the live stream. Bloomberg's reporting that a year after Facebook launched podcasts and other audio tools for creators, sources say that Meta has shifted its focus to metaverse events and online shopping. Metaverse is shifting to online shopping. That's interesting. Facebook's interest in podcasts is fading barely a year after it began, and now they're shifting their focus to metaverse events and online shopping, which makes sense. The next is Las Vegas-based company raises some money. A bunch of people raised money. China-founded startups are increasingly abandoning their domestic market to pursue international markets due to mounting compliance costs and regulatory risks. Makes sense. If you're a Chinese entrepreneur, it doesn't make sense to be dealing with data of Chinese users because the state is going to own that shit. They feel that's like their data, not your data as a company. That's the state's data. And long story short, so Chinese entrepreneurs are now having to rethink and no longer addressing what was the most attractive market on the planet, the Chinese internet market. They're no longer addressing because it's no longer attractive because it's too volatile. You can get kneecapped in a weekend, as we've seen. So that's going to be a problem because now China was in many ways leading in terms of innovation, in terms of internet culture, products and features. It was the future of the internet in many ways was being born out of China, even as short as a year ago. And now that's no longer going to be happening. It's quite a substantial turn of events because they just the control again, going back to the live streaming. YouTube Shorts, which is YouTube trying to compete with TikTok, again, to the point that the future was Chinese born. TikTok came out of China, and YouTube, it's the biggest threat YouTube's ever faced is TikTok. So YouTube Shorts, their answer to TikTok, now lets creators splice in 1 to 5 second clips from eligible long form videos and shorts. Previously, creators could only add short audio clips. That's super interesting because now, if you are doing TikTok style videos on YouTube, you can now use a seemingly endless number of other YouTube videos and snip out 1 to 5 seconds of other YouTube videos to include in your little YouTube short, which is again like a vertical little TikTok video from YouTube. But now you've, as a creator, have millions and millions of video clips to draw from. That's pretty cool. And YouTube, by the way, you saw that TikTok investigation from Homeland Security. Of course, no doubt, and as Damiler said, we did see the smoking gun that Facebook was doing a bit of a hit job on TikTok. Makes sense. It's their main competitor. And probably legitimately had a good reason to do that because TikTok wasn't getting the attention that they should for the negative shit that was going on there. And now they are. But Facebook is not TikTok's only competitor. YouTube very clearly could fall into the category of a TikTok competitor. So YouTube, which is Google, now has a bit of a bone to pick with TikTok, and Google might be whispering in the ears of Homeland Security about child predation practices on TikTok. So now you're starting to get potentially YouTube, Netflix, Facebook, and I'm thinking of who else might be consider themselves TikTok their biggest competitor, might be in the back channels when they're meeting with policymakers, whispering in their ears about this kind of stuff. YouTube, if TikTok gets screwed over, let me pose this question: who would benefit if TikTok were to be shut down in the US? We read an article yesterday, 24 hours ago, that the Indian version of TikTok, where TikTok got banned out of India, and the homegrown domestic version in India is now worth $5 billion just a couple of years later. Great. which American company would benefit if TikTok is banned in the US, just as a thought experiment. Certainly, YouTube could benefit greatly if they continue to do YouTube shorts. And no doubt Instagram would, people would rush to fill in the gap in the vacuum created by the absence of TikTok. But I think YouTube would certainly benefit if they played their cards right. So that is your big boring headlines for today.
Hey, Tyler,
Yes.
it's Jen. Can I say,
Yep.
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of your discussion on TikTok. Yeah, Instagram would be the biggest beneficiary if TikTok's gone because right now they're the two short form videos, but they're very different products. Instagram is to your friends and kind of building that influence, your friends and people who want to follow you, whereas TikTok is to people like you, and that's the big difference. And it's a lot. And also, TikTok has an American entity, right? They have an American subsidiary, or however they're framing that. My understanding is that TikTok actually is better with your privacy than Facebook and Instagram are. So uh, I don't know who's whispering in whose ears right now because I missed the beginning of your conversation, but just wanted to bring those data points up.
So you missed the part about the Department of Homeland Security.
I did.
Okay, well then
Sorry.
let me
Woke up.
pin this to the top of the room then. So for those who might have missed it, TikTok under U.S. investigation on child sexual abuse material, short form video app with young user base accused of being the perfect place for predators by Homeland Security. As the platform of choice, it's a perfect place for predators to meet, groom, and engage children, said Homeland Security's Cybercrime Division, calling it the platform of choice for child predators.
Yeah, I don't know. I am a kind of avid user, or I won't say avid, but I do use TikTok, and it's all ages. It's not just kids, and it really that's my personal experience. So it's N of one, but and I do appreciate Homeland Security. I think they're a good agency, but I would wonder what's going on behind the scenes here. Again, just any of the headlines that we read are very surface as to what's really going on. But yeah, interesting, very interesting.
Hey, Tyler, it's Valerie. Could this maybe be a few days ago in the last week, Uncle Joe and Uncle Modi had a conversation. And could there be incentive saying, hey, come over to our side, we'll use your version of TikTok in the US? Just wondering.
I would find that hard to. That would be a stretch. I don't think that would happen. There was, by the way, a U.S. alternative made called Triller, which my buddy Ash was a significant investor in, and they were trying to. They there was a moment of opportunity when Trump was pushing hard against TikTok. It looked like Triller did start getting tons of downloads. There was a period where they were a top 10 app in all of the app store. And then in the end, the clock ran out. Trump lost the election, and so TikTok survived, and Triller didn't need to fill in the vacuum. But I think you're right. I think Instagram would be the biggest beneficiary if TikTok did. If Trump does win the next election and does come back and does go after TikTok, all very plausible scenarios, then yeah, Instagram could be in a good spot. But now we got to get into the tweets, don't we? I'm having trouble loading the tweets for some reason. There we are. There's BB. And why isn't there we go? Okay. So, Ben, you have one about Shanghai update on COVID?
Yeah, just
Right.
racing for the mute button.
Yeah.
So yeah, just looking at it, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, I won't call it a mild respiratory disease. It's a serious respiratory disease. Why are they covered head to toe in white shit? What's? I mean, just what's going on? It's great with decent mask and maybe some goggles will do it, right?
The hazmat suits. Yeah. Anyone who's traveled through Asia lately, um, Asians of some places definitely go to rather extreme lengths while they're in airports as well.
They're just flaunting their PPE.
Yeah, like the codeless kind of people in big white in Chinese 大白, and yeah, that's protection suit. So everyone, yeah. And
I've just
Caroline?
invited Rachel on stage. Rachel, do you have any updates from your friends in Shanghai?
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. Hi, everybody. Um, I think I said it in this room a few weeks ago. It's not about COVID, and I will say it again. It's not about COVID because anybody who has any data or knowledge about COVID will know that first of all, you can never really get rid of it. I don't think anybody in China is that stupid think they can get rid of it. Second, even in China, the severe case and the death rate so far from Shanghai is so low that it's minimal. But the collateral damage, it's widely circulated online. So I think it's not about COVID. It's very clear. It's geopolitical. And there are many different kind of theories why this is happening, and I think I can't really say it here, but yeah, given in the big kind of geopolitical environment right now, and given that there is a new election in October, anything is possible. But one thing is for sure, this is not about COVID. And
Can you
also,
give us a little hint as to what it could be about?
well, there is a election, right?
Yeah.
In this coming, yes. And that there's probably a infight between the incumbent and the newcomers. And Shanghai, given Shanghai is Shanghai gang is very powerful. Jiang Zemin came from Shanghai, to Shanghai. So Shanghai politically is a very significant camp. So there is a theory that the reason everything is happening in Shanghai is because Shanghai was chosen. I think that makes sense because I think even last time I said that the whole this COVID initiative was not carried by Shanghai government. It was carried directly from above. Essentially, it's Shanghai the local government, Shanghai government has no say in what to do. There are also a lot of other kind of near military measures, which is really not necessary, given that we're dealing with COVID cases in China, but all the highways are blocked to other provinces. Yeah, so I think, and also just today, just a few hours ago, first of all, in the last 2 days, they're saying, well, things might look up because they are not forcing people to these big Fangchang hospitals anymore because they ran out of it. But now, what I heard 2 hours ago, maybe 1 hour ago, is that there will be another strict measure coming in Shanghai, like a 1 week of absolutely nothing, no delivery, no nothing. But government action, from one of my classmates, he said, yeah, I just received a bunch of deliveries of food from the local officials. So, people on the ground are also trying to pick up different signals and trying to make sense of it. But I think from what I can read, I don't think it's ending anytime soon in Shanghai.
Can you spell out for us what it is about then, for avoidance of doubt, if you're comfortable to do it? Just like really basic black and white. What's this game?
I think, first of all, Shanghai has the political, there is a political power behind this whole Shanghai. I think that the central government, Xi, is trying to destroy the Shanghai gang. That's one of the opponents, very powerful opponents. That's one. Second, they're saying this could be a kind of a maneuver, a kind of preparation for what might happen should she decided to do something as stupid as pricking what Russia between Russia and Ukraine, so between China and Taiwan. So there are many different theories, but the net is this has nothing to do with China. This has nothing to do with COVID. This has nothing to do with Shanghai per se. It's all the central governments. Um, exactly what is what? It's so not clear. But it's definitely not just COVID. This morning there was there's some viral, some video go viral. The Zhangjiang district, I think for those people who do business with China, in Shanghai, know this big develop kind of a science technology park in Zhangjiang. And there was one of those compounds, residents there were evicted just like by brutal force. Police car went there and then they just took over the whole compound. So a lot of things don't make sense. The local people, they are naturally not happy, but on the other hand, they have no idea what's going on. So, and also like I said, all the highways between the Shanghai and the neighboring provinces are cut off.
Could it just be a compliance test? So if you're saying people don't know what it is, could this just be a let's test and see if people will comply even when there's no logical motive?
There is one. I think a part of it, yes. And I wouldn't call it compliance. I think I'd call it kind of a mobilization test. You know, if the central government needs to mobilize the people on the ground, what would that look like? I think that definitely, I think that's definitely one part of it. But that's in the name of COVID. Without the name of COVID, I don't know how that would be. But
Okay.
from some of my friends on the ground, that they say they can. I mean, this is what 4 weeks after the initial kind of. So after 4 weeks, they definitely see an improvement of the local kind of government units' ability that are significantly increased. I don't know. So yeah, it's pretty scary, pretty chilling.
So to be clear, so sorry, I didn't want to
Yeah,
interrupt.
yeah, that's okay. Hi Ben.
No, to
Yeah.
be clear, what I meant by compliance test is there a possibility they're effectively trying to answer the question, how much can we ask these people to do without reasonable justification and expect them to do it? Is this a test of just compliance of the population to the rules? How
Well,
malleable is the population?
again, I think in the name of COVID, right? Because most of the people on the ground have no idea that Omicron actually doesn't kill anymore. They're brainwashed. They're brainwashed. They're essentially saying,
You,
we cannot do what the Westerners do, like sacrifice that whatever percentage, right? You talk about 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 10,000, but given China has such a big population, so the central government is looking after every single citizen. We don't want those people to succumb to death. They're all brainwashed.
I think Ben's point is prior to Shanghai's lockdown, actually, there are many big cities in China are under lockdown still, but we never heard of that because besides Shanghai, it's not an international news. And I would say Ben's right on the point because only in Shanghai, it's hard to make them comply in this
No, no.
way
Oh,
because
okay.
prior to this, the Shanghai government fight a long time to not to a full lockdown. But yes, just like Rachel said, because it's Jiang Zemin like again Shanghai against area. So right now, from what I've heard, that many of the high-ranking officers originally belongs to Jiang gangs are replaced with CCP with G parties. So just like Rachel said, it's not always. It's not about COVID. It's about the political issues. It's about Xi's control, especially for their 20th Congress, the National Congress in autumn. So right now the problem is, I would like to say prior to maybe uh, the Omicron, actually China's zero COVID policy worked very well because in that time, every factory never stopped manufacture. And zero COVID made the domestic economic circulation works pretty fine, and even the exportation make uh, hit another high level in the last 2 years compared with the Western countries. So right now, because Omicron, but and Cheryl said a conspiracy theory maybe 3 days ago about the Sinovac vaccine uh, can't work against now Omicron. And I've read, actually, I've watched YouTuber said a paper from Hong Kong released yesterday. It said how, effectiveness the Sinovac can't fight the virus of Omicron, the variant of Omicron. So yes, Cher's theory, the theory Cher shared actually has a point. So right now they don't have our mRNA vaccine, and they don't buy it, and they can produce it, and they found from the papers that Sinovac or Sinopharm can't fight the Omicron variant effectively. So now stuck in the middle to what direction they should go. But right now, if they can find an excuse about why the vaccine can't work, that is one direction to settle down this lockdown issue. Because right now it's almost it's um, the
I
third
think,
week. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, thank you,
So
Bibi.
I would just say, yeah.
Yeah, I think I didn't make myself very clear. Let me try one more time. I think this is not about COVID. With Omicron, I think anywhere, any city, any places you want to test, there will be many, many positives. You can chase your tails. You can never get rid of them. You can lock everybody down. I think the point Shanghai is chosen is because Shanghai is chosen for some reasons that we can all speculate. And other cities, other places, when they're not, where there isn't such a kind of everybody test every other day or 3 times a day, they are Omicrons, right? I don't think they're really looking at COVID right now. I think they know COVID is not killing people anymore, not that much anymore, because the collateral damage is much, much bigger. But I think, yes, they're still doing this zero test, zero tolerance for other purpose. And also, we average people have no access to the test, right? Sometimes you read the reports of, I mean, you're positive, you're negative, but who is to know? There's nobody to know, right? So it's really not about COVID anymore. And when they want it to zero, then it will be zero. Right now, it's not zero, then it's not zero. Everybody has to test. And it's not really about COVID. Again, it's not.
Could it be because Shanghai is the most prosperous
Shanghai is the
area
most prosperous,
in China,
yes.
and
Shanghai
right now
is.
they're pushing for common prosperity, so
No,
this
no,
is a
no,
good
no, no,
chance
no,
to
no, no, no,
cripple.
no, no, no. This cannot be that. I think it's not, because
Okay.
he cannot be that stupid, right? Shanghai is the only
Mm,
municipality in the last 2 years which has runs a surplus. Anywhere in
mm,
China, it's loss. Shanghai is the only one. Shanghai has always contributed 30-40% of
mm,
the profits to the whole country. No, I
mm,
think that this is not. But he has to survive. I mean, whatever he has to fight for his political survival. And Shanghai is
mm,
the
mm.
place, I think.
Okay, so we got to get into more tweets here. The
Hey,
first,
Tyler, real quick.
yeah,
Hey, I really appreciated that last exchange. So, Rachel, BB, thank you very much. This is Robert. I'm out.
Yeah, but let's pray for Shanghai's residents. There are so many tragedies happening right now, especially like crowding out the normal medical treatments. Many people, for example, for those who need the kidney dialysis or even any normal uh, disease that you can get, no more that you can get a treatment right now, especially for those elders. They are forced to uh, in their homes and without any help. So, yeah, I hope everybody can. What we can do is praying, but yeah, let's hope they can get better treatment in the future.
So then, first or next tweet that I have is from Jeff G. from the Wall Street Journal, that New York considers weapon detecting technology for subway system after the Brooklyn attack. Several types of screening systems are under consideration. Officials say they are looking for ways to improve safety in the city's transit network. Weapon detecting technologies. The next is from Bibi, that nuclear bombs may be headed back to the UK. The Pentagon's latest budget request suggests that work is underway to restore U.S. nuclear weapons storage in England. Thank you for that one. And the next is from KC. From the Telegraph, speaking of the UK, it says UK to become a gas bridge to Europe. National Grid predicts surge in gas exports as continent turns off Russian supplies. And BB has this one from Metro UK. That's three in a row for the UK. Russian state TV declares World War III has started after the sinking of the Moskva ship in the Black Sea.
So at least we see how Russia media responded to this uh, Moscow sinking thing. Yeah.
Kremlin's main propaganda mouthpiece went into meltdown last night after the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet was taken out. Officials have refused to acknowledge Ukraine's claims it struck the ship with a cruise missile, an operation which would be one of Kyiv's biggest military successes since the invasion began. But despite Russia's insistence it sunk because of a fire, the Ukrainian capital was struck by rockets overnight, a sign Vladimir
Hey,
Putin wants revenge for the downing of the prized naval vessel. Yes.
Tyler, this is Robert. It's so interesting how did not the Russians learn from the British and the Argentinians in the Falkland War to see how vulnerable ships are to missiles, and as close as their ships are operating in the Black Sea to Ukraine. I, I, I'm not trying to. I'm just talking strategically, not trying to take any or tactically. I'm not trying to take any side. But aren't they thinking? I mean, their missiles have longer ranges than what they are, and for them to be operating so close to the coast, their leadership is just so naive. And I'm also wondering, why did we not forecast their lack of capability and training all these years, as we spent trillions of dollars for equipment to protect us against the Russians? Their execution is just terrible. Anyway, Rob.
Okay. Next up is from Thomas Tong, that Tesla must pay a former worker $15 million for disturbing racial abuse, a judge has ruled. Well, let's see what this. On Wednesday, a federal judge rejected Tesla's claim that it is not liable for disturbing racist abuse suffered by an ex-factory worker. U.S. District Judge William Orrick rejected what he called Tesla's watered-down revisionism that cast plaintiff Owen Diaz's suffering as mild and short-lived. The judge slashed Diaz's financial reward, however, while the jury awarded Diaz $6.9 million in compensatory damages. and 130 million in punitive damages. Jesus, $137 million.
Yeah, that was outrageous.
Oryx set the amount to 1.5 in compensatory damages and 13 million in punitive damages instead. He wrote that the new amount of 1.5 is the highest award supported by the evidence, and that the punitive damage can be 9 times the amount based on U.S. law. The evidence was disturbing, said Oryx ruling in the U.S. District Court of Northern California. The jury heard that the Tesla factory was saturated with racism. Diaz faced frequent racial abuse, including the N-word and other slurs. Other employees harassed him. His supervisors and Tesla broader management structure did little or nothing to respond, and supervisors even joined in on the abuse, one going so far as to threaten Diaz and draw a racist caricature near his workstation. Tesla wanted to limit the damages to 300,000 each. So this is the second time now that somebody's been awarded a impressive amount, a Tesla factory worker, right? The other one was, I don't know, 6 months ago. You guys remember that one?
Yeah, yeah. Or is it the same one and it's just they lowered the because the
Is
real
it the
thing
one
about
in
the
the
Army.
elevator? The elevator man?
Right. Yeah, the guy who worked in the elevator, right?
Oh, okay. The key thing is lowering the damages, which makes it more reasonable. Also,
I don't think the name doesn't ring a bell to me. Seems like it's a different one. Anyway, the next is from Thomas Tong that Brazilian military faces stiff questions about purchase of penis implants. Brazil is hard up for an explanation after facing inquiry over why it keeps purchasing male enhancement products for its soldiers.
are you kidding me?
Here, I will pin it to the top of the
Is
Can
room.
you
this like the
elaborate
onion
on the
movie?
man enhancement in what sense?
And in the article they said hard up too. Too crazy.
Yeah, it's from here. I'll pin it to the top of the room here. 1 second. As it says, oh, did it not pin? Oh, there it goes. The Guardian reports. Well, let me click on the Guardian's report. There it is. So the Guardian's reporting this. Army says it purchased 3 silicone implants rather than the 60 reported by the media. After revelations, the military also bought Viagra. Further questions,
What?
yeah, further questions have been raised about the military spending on impotence treatments after allegations Brazil's defense ministry had approved the purchase of penile implants costing more than £500,000. Those claims followed revelations on Monday that the armed forces had forked out for more than 35,000 Viagra pills in what one leading opposition politician called an erectile outrage. We won't allow Bolsonaro to turn Brazil into an orgy, tweeted the leftist congresswoman, and sparked an online outpouring of indignation and smirks. The military insists its acquisitions are above board. The Navy and Air Force claim they use Viagra to treat pulmonary hypertension. The Army alleged it had bought only 3 silicone penile implants rather than the 60 reported in the Brazilian media, and had spent far less than the £560,000 originally claimed. Quote, the Army healthcare system is assigned with treating male patients for various types of ailments that might require surgery for the implantation, it said in a statement. The Bolsonaro defended the military on Wednesday, telling reporters, quote, the armed forces buy Viagra to fight arterial hypertension as well as some rheumatic diseases. With all due respect, it's nothing, he said.
The war on hypertension. It's nothing really. Nothing to see here.
I'm betting it's not the 18-year-old soldiers that need that, and the generals are scamming it.
So, Thomas has the next one that a startup is engineering trees to grow faster and capture more carbon. Genetic engineering has given scientists the power to manipulate fundamental properties of living things so they can draw down more carbon from the air and grow with less water, etc. We definitely need that. The FDA authorizes the first COVID-19 breath test. The agency granted emergency use authorization for the test, which detects chemical compounds in breath samples. So, a non-invasive COVID test. Russia warns the United States to stop arming Ukraine. The formal diplomatic note from Moscow, a copy of which was reviewed by the Washington Post, came as President Biden approved a dramatic expansion. And 1,000 scientists from around the world unanimously risked arrest, and scientists and researchers from around the world have risked arrest by committing civil disobedience last week. What is it all about? Well, as one of them was a NASA scientist, chained himself to a bank and fights off tears over disaster. And the headline says a NASA scientist has been filmed fighting off tears over an impending disaster, saying we're going to lose everything. So it seems like the scientists are starting to join the protesters. That shit's about to get real. And we covered the Tesla lawsuit. So that brings us to the ends of the tweets for today. So a hour and a half, kind of a short mini session today, but and we have the weekend off, so enjoy that. And we will meet again on Monday, where I should be in Stockholm. So I will see you from Stockholm on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend.